fire it up. What did we learn yesterday? What are the concepts that we revisited? What were the light bulb moments? What are we still struggling with React? Hit me up in chat, or, change it up a little bit. Come off mute. Hear someone else's voice, but mine for once. Yes, props. What do we need props for? Well, on the surface, we need props to send information from the parent component down into the child component, right? What we end up seeing, though, is sometimes we have state that we need to be able to pass down, and we need to be able to update that state in one child, go back up to the parent to save that information, then take that information and pass that down to the child component. So oftentimes state we will use with props. Props doesn't necessarily have to come from state every single time, but it is a very common use of that. How do we pass that information down? Props are also helpful when we've got a complex set of code that we want to be able to reuse. Well, we call that a component. We make that its own component. But then how do we get that data to change based off of what information is getting sent into it? So we want to think about that as our message bubble, right? We have this message bubble that we want to show every time, and we want that to be a div, and we want it to have this class name, and we want to have a span and all of that. But then there's information in that that's dynamic, right? We don't want the same message text to show up every single time. We don't want the same timestamp to show up every single time. So because of that, we use those props to send the information into the component. Then we use that curly brace JSX syntax to make that information from the props show up in our HTML, or the JSX, the HTML section of our JSX, I should say. Jen, you are more than welcome to bring a +1. That is totally fine. I don't know. I think it could be fascinating to see members of the community kind of join in and see what we're learning. And I highly encourage you guys on Wednesday. I'm guessing it will lean kind of more employer, more Lemoyne's network. And then on Thursday, it will lean more Hack Upstate, right? So former graduates, people who have taught in the program in the past, that kind of thing. So feel free to think about some questions that you may want to ask former graduates. There is also a date coming up in the middle of August where I have cherry picked a few students to come in and talk to you about their journeys after the program. Totally not because I want to go to a concert that night. So you are going to learn about Brian is going to come in and talk to you about React Native and how he not only built a mobile app, but actually became a published developer. You can download his app in the App Store. He took his capstone and kind of went on from that. You're going to hear from Schneider, who also graduated with Brian, and about how he gets out in the community and how he isn't afraid to say what he doesn't know or be willing to learn. And then we've got a couple other students lined up as well to come in and talk about their journey. That's coming up. I think it's Wednesday in the middle of August. I want to say the 15th, but don't quote me on that. So that's coming down the pipeline. Okay, back to chat. Setting a username, that was a great suggestion. I think Rain threw that one out of, hey, username looks like one of those easy things to do, but we got to pass that data around, right? Because we're showing that to the user, that's going to be in state. We have to make that new state variable. But then how do we go on from there? We need to make that information show up. So we need to pass that around in state. Natasha, no big deal if you missed it. I think that was in the last 30 minutes of class. That's when I was in lightning round mode, where I was like, don't bother following along. Just see if you have questions, see if this flow is going. So totally okay if you missed that, but just to give you an idea of how to implement those features. We talked a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want to let
you
no,
go for it.
Road. So when I first met with Exona, she gave me the idea to write on the postcards, like the time stamp on the YouTube video where there was an aha moment. I actually took it one further and wrote the comment on the YouTube video. And I was like, I don't know if that's like frowned upon, but today I was watching your video, I think it was from last night, And you literally said like, okay, I'm getting ready to blitz this. And it totally made sense for like 3 minutes you went in, and I was like, why didn't he teach it this way in the first place? You could have saved us 5 hours of class. But no, seriously, it was awesome. So I put it in the comments, and I was like, the magic happens at 20 minutes and 40 seconds. I hope he doesn't hate me for that, but it worked for me.
Forget about the rest of class. The only part that really matters is this 3 minutes. No, please do that. Please do that, because that is not only going to help your
Yeah.
fellow students if they happen to watch that, it is also going to help other students down the road
Right.
too, right? And believe it or not, there are some students that get to the end of their cohorts and graduate and say, for the next 6 months, I'm going to go back through and rewatch the video every day to just make sure those concepts are sinking in.
Yes, I would do that.
And there is a alumni group that actually meets like every Sunday at 5 p.m. and they just hop in a Zoom room and kind of talk about their journeys and where they're at and all of that stuff. It may kind of be AA style for having to suffer through 6 months of my teaching. And you know, they're just there to support each other through that traumatic experience.
Are you serious? To
Totally
support
kidding.
group for
Totally
Max's
kidding.
cohort? I can't, yo.
But yes, please take advantage of that. YouTube, I think, realized that that was a really cool feature. So they parse out those timestamps so that you can click on the link and it will jump you right there.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to BS you. A 2.5-hour video on YouTube takes a very long time to get through. So those timestamps, definitely keep utilize them. That is great.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, we use set and return, covered that. Definitely need recovery. And yes, Mel was saying that when he was going through the program, he would fast forward to the part where I start to do the football line drawings, marking up the screen. Everyone learns differently. Believe it or not, there are some students who are like, yeah, I just tune out when you start doing the lines. I can't really follow them. So we will try, I do try different techniques there, but a lot of people will only learn if they're writing the code, and as they're writing it, that's right. They say, if you are sitting in a lecture and you're taking notes, even if you take those notes and throw them in the trash can on the way out, or hopefully the recycle bin, you will retain that information more just because you wrote down the notes than if you just sat in the class and went, I think I'm remembering most of this. So whatever method works for you is totally great. Natasha, keep up the timestamps. Feel free to share them with other students. I wish I had enough time to go back through and kind of edit the videos or come up with a table of contents for that video, but
Dude, don't
yes.
you have interns or like people, like folks who need something to do?
We're grant funded. You know, we got some money, but not a ton of money that we can throw at that. But
just kidding.
Listening to me at work, I'm sorry you have to go through that horror, but yes, it is a great way to review and capture that information. Corwin mentioned a good one. We use to locale string and then date for the first time, right? This notion of, hey, the dates are kind of this specially formatted thing. Instead of having to type in the time that message got created, we can just timestamp it with a new date. The problem is that date has all kinds of information in it, right? Dates are one of those things that look really simple on the surface. Oh, it's, the month, the day, the year, and the hour, and the minute, and that's all there is to it, right? Well, there's time zones in there. There's what information do you want to display? There's all kinds of crazy stuff in there. So, sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat. Dates can be really complex. We use to locale string to convert that complex object and all the information in it into a string that we can display. And React definitely helps with that by being able to use those curly braces and drops that in there. Okay. Anything else from yesterday's class that we want to review? Actually, I'll open the question up to that. I'm also going to pull up the terms list. Speaking of people doing awesome work for us, Mel updated our terms list for week 14 with a bunch of different React terms. So for once, I'm going to shut up for a full 2 minutes and give you guys a chance to review. I'm not sure if that link will take you down to week 14. If it doesn't, feel free to just use the table of contents on the side or scroll down to week 14. Read through that terms list. Think about, can I find where we use that term somewhere in our code, either in the chat program or over in the WoW app, the Owen Wilson API that we did. Read through those terms, try and find it in the code. And if there's anything that's not really resonating for you, if you can feel the light bulb flickering on, but you need a little bit more juice to get it to stay on, go ahead and come off mute or raise your hand or drop a question in the chat. Sometimes definitions don't make sense to you until you hear it verbally. And when you do, that's what makes it click, or sometimes you just need to hear it another way. So go ahead, read through those terms, see if you have any questions. I'll share it on my screen. It's going to be pretty tiny, but I'll share it on my screen just in case. And I will promise to shut up now and give you guys a couple minutes to read through these. Natasha.
I just want to thank Mel for the examples because like we do some commenting in our code, but it's nowhere near as like in depth as these little, but it's still a short definition, but it's long enough. So I really appreciate that. I just want to say thanks.
And I have had the thought about 9 times to take all of these terms and make one of those, the I Love Coding JavaScript cheat sheets where they show you variables and functions and all of that. I spent probably 45 minutes searching for a good one and not being able to find one that leans towards the visual side. So this may be a starting place for me on a 6-hour plane ride back to New York to actually build something like that out. So awesome work, Mel.
I didn't realize that state was a hook. Looking at this, it's like, whoa, I missed that. And I don't even know how I missed that, but wow.
Hooks are a little weird. Anything that starts with use usually is a hook. So use effect, use state are the two that we've seen so far. Those are the only 2 hooks that you'll use about 95% of the time. There are definitely other hooks that are built into React, but hands down, those are the most used hooks. Pun someone intended there, use hook. But yes, those are important ones. If hooks are kind of escaping your grasp, that's okay. They're kind of you can overcomplicate it and oversimplify it kind of at the same time. The reason why you can overcomplicate it is because hooks can do so many different things in React. And you can actually build your own hooks that you're like, well, what is a hook if you can build so much into it? But if you want to oversimplify it, you can also do that and say, hey, React is this complicated thing running under the hood, and we can use a hook to kind of hook into that complicated engine without having to know how the whole engine works. So you can kind of think about it as, hey, you know what? I can go in and I can like tune up my car, right? And I can make it a little bit faster or a little bit more different without needing to know how the transmission works and all these other pieces of it. So I'm just hooking into something that already exists, but I need to be able to do that in order to make my application work, in order to make state work, or in order to make this code run only when the component first shows up or anything like that. So that's how I like to think about hooks. It's weird because you can go off the deep end with hooks and then you don't understand it because you're in the deep end, or you can kind of oversimplify it and not understand the full power of them. So kind of shoot in the middle there and go, all right, use effect, use state, both of them are hooks, both of them are taking advantage of stuff that React already gave us. That's probably enough to think about the definition for hooks.
Pretty effective. Thank you.
Anything else in this list that we have questions that were like, whoa, I don't think we learned that? Anything jumping out at you here that you would like a quick little code snippet of a review before we dive into the blog project? Plush. Oh, and Shakota, I'm going to you next.
Life cycle features?
Life cycle features, yeah, good question. So life cycle is kind of when we think about the life cycle of an animal, right? An animal gets born, the animal grows up and becomes an adult. The animal goes through, ages out, and then the animal dies. The same thing goes for a component. So a component is going to, when it first shows up, it is in the process of mounting. And mounting a component just means, how do we take this code and make it actually show up in the virtual DOM? How do we make it show up in the browser? And so the life cycle of a class-based component, which isn't what we've learned functional components. About 3 years ago, React said, hey, we've got this new thing called a functional component. We think that this is going to take over React and be very popular. The thing with functional components is they are easier to learn how to get started in them. They have a lower barrier to entry, but the more complicated features of them, like hooks, are a little bit harder to learn. So in a class-based component, there was a component lifecycle where you had something called component will mount. And it was saying, hey, before we go through any of the render code, do you want to run this section of the code? And so then they came out with a component did mount, and that was saying, okay, right after the component shows up, what code do you want to run? Then there was a component will unmount. Okay, that makes sense, right? And then there's a component did unmount. So if you wanted to do something right before the component disappeared off the page or right after it disappeared off the page, for example, a component will unmount, we could put something in there that says, alert, are you sure you want to close this tab? And if you hit cancel on that, the tab would stay open. And then there were a couple other component lifecycle features. Component will update. Well, when would a component update? Maybe some state changed, maybe an API call reran, maybe there was some information that was going to cause it to update. That is the component lifecycle. We get access to those things similarly with use effect. So use effect is able to say, hey, when this component first loads, when it first mounts, what code do you want to run? We can also return a function from a use effect that will be the equivalent of a component will or did unmount. Hey, when this goes away, do you want to make an API call that says, hey, save in the database of the user close this page? Or do you want to say, are you sure you want to close this page? Your changes may be lost. So the component lifecycle or lifecycle methods are basically just saying that, hey, we're hooking into React to say that a component is born, a component goes through life, and then a component dies. We can hook into that life cycle.
With this, with this mounting and unmounting, does it happen usually with only APIs? Or for example, there's a website with a form, you fill up the form, it submits and gives you back a thank you text or a thank you page. Subscribe to our newsletter and all that. Is that also an example of that, or?
Yes, it can be. So if you wanted to say, hey, when the user hits the submit button on the form, take the information that got submitted to the API and also save it into local storage, just in case they come back to the form, it will save their information for them. You could do that on a component lifecycle method. You do not have to necessarily make an API call. There are times that you would want to use the component lifecycle method to say, like, hey, when they close this page, save the time that they closed it so that when they reopen the page, it would say last viewed and have the timestamp of when they closed the page. That would be a good example of a component lifecycle that is not using an API call.
Thank you.
The hands down, the most common one is, hey, I'm going to do a use effect, and that use effect is going to run an API call to get the data from the database, and then that data we're going to set into state so that it shows up to the user. So use effect is the functional component way to hook into that component lifecycle. But if you ever see a class-based component with something like component did mount or component will unmount or component did mount, those are all lifecycle methods. You hear about the lifecycle less in functional components, but it still does exist.
Is there something we're going to be doing, something like that? In any of our
Yes, and once we learn, so React does not go away. We have the blog project. The blog project, we are going to be using use effect to load the blog posts from local storage, just like we did in Vanilla.js. So the goal tonight is looking at our blog project and actually converting that over to React components. And then we'll get more practice with that on Tuesday as well. Hopefully with one or two of your capstones, just so you can get exposure to it. But tonight will be the first project that we convert over. And that will be using lifecycle, the use effect to pull the information out of local storage and to sync that into state. And then we will, blog project, just like chat project, are the two projects that won't die. So after we learn about APIs and SQL databases, we come back both to chat and to blog, and we change out local storage to use a API call instead. And then that information will flow from our SQL database through our API to our React front ends, and then we'll build it from there. Good question. Shakota, did you have a question? I thought I heard you.
Yes, but you talked a little bit about it, and so we're gonna continue to do it. It was just on use effect.
Yep, we will get more practice. The only place we've seen use effect so far is the Owen Wilson API, where we said, hey, when this component first loads, we don't want to make this API call every single time the state is updated, every single time we type a letter. So because of that, we want to do a use effect and say, make this API call only when the page first loads. Well, we're going to have that problem with the blog project. We don't want to make it so every time they type a letter, we go to local storage and pull out the new blog posts. So what we're going to do is a use effect that's going to say, hey, when this page first loads, go to local storage, see if anything is there, parse it out, show that in state. So that's all coming down the pipeline. Any other questions, terms reviews, things we want to see a code snippet of, any of that good stuff? Okay. In that case, give me 1 second. I am going to attempt to find the blog project. Which would help if I was prepared, but alas, I am not. Let me head to the schedule and see if I can find it quicker there. Okay, week 9, day 2. Let's see if we also did it in day 3. Nope, Day 3 was movies. So okay. All right, so we are going to start with a screen share. And this is where it becomes a little bit more fun. We've got even more windows we've got to juggle, because isn't that everyone's favorite? So we're going to head to week 9. We're going to head to day 3. I'm in my code week 9, day 3. I am going to drag that into VS Code. And in VS Code, I'm going to pop open my index.html and hit go live. But Max, you said we can never hit go live again. No, I didn't. I said you can't go live in React. Because this is vanilla HTML and JavaScript, we can hit the go live button. My go live button is going to bring in some posts. Do not panic if you cannot see posts, if they got cleared out of local storage. It's no big deal. This is the first project that we're going to look at the HTML code we already wrote and learn how we can take that and bring that over to a React project. So I know a lot of you guys are a little anxious about bringing your capstones over to React. While we start from scratch in a React project, that does not mean that we burn our HTML code while we're at it. A lot of that code we're going to just copy and paste over. So all of that formatting, all of that work you have done is translatable. So I've got week 9, day 3 open. I do need week 9, day 3. Yeah, Plush. And if my internet's being funky, let me know. I noticed you guys were lagging a little bit earlier, so apologies in advance if my internet's causing any issues. Okay, I'm also going to head back to Finder. I'm going to go to my code. I'm going to go to my week 14. I'm going to make a day 4 folder. And I am going to pop open my terminal. From my terminal, I am going to type in CD and a space. Please, for the love of God, do not forget the space. CD space. I'm going to grab my day 4 folder and drag that whole thing into the terminal. CDs always scare me because I don't know if they actually worked or not. So I'm going to run pwd and confirm that I am in week 14, day 4. If it did not work, I would probably be in my home folder, not all the way down in my desktop, my code week 14, day 4.
Max, are we making a new D4 or are we copying 3?
We're making a new D4. Please do not copy day 3 because we are not starting a project from the previous day. We are starting completely from scratch. Because we're starting from scratch, we are creating a new D4. From there, we are going to npx create React app, and we are going to call this a very unique blog. And hopefully your internet is not running as slow as mine is. Okay, once we get down to happy hacking, we are all set in this terminal. So I can go up to terminal and down to quit or command Q. I am going to head to my desktop, to my day 4, to my blog folder, and you can drag either day 4 or blog into VS Code. Either one is fine. What's important, though, is once you take that and drag that in to VS Code, you make sure that you are right-clicking somewhere inside the blog project to start the terminal. Yes, Jen, it was npx create React app blog. and just with a lowercase n, autocorrect is stupid, but Mel beat me to it for that command. Once we get blog open, we can right click on any one of the files in here, open an integrated terminal, run our npm start. We still want to keep our week 9 day 3 open from the blog that we were working on before. We got our spinning React logo. I will start a live share and try not to hijack your servers. Oops. Oh. Okay. Go ahead and share that. And we should be good to go. Do you guys also want a live share for my week 9 day 3? Or are you good to reference your own?
I just got happy hacking. Can you help me get the rest?
Yep. Pop open the blog folder in VS Code, right click, open an integrated terminal, npm start. Using 3001 is not a problem. And yes, Kenny, welcome to the world of professional software development.
We're gonna have
Lots of windows to open. Sorry, what's up, Jen?
No, I'm like, we have like a million windows to open and I had it all ready to do your live share. Now I realize I got to open another window for, wait, can I just throw the blog into with a day 3?
Sure. Just be very careful with that, because if you put it in there, it may be easy to think that you're in React code when you're actually in the old code.
Okay, so then I'm just gonna not do that because I'll fuck it up.
If you would like to have nausea induced, swing by me whenever I'm at work, and I can show you what my mission control looks like when you swipe up and all the windows show up. You need a magnifying glass to see what windows are what. And this is not the limit. We do have even more windows open during full stack development. It gets worse, not better.
That's it. We're just opening everything right now. I didn't have to delete anything or.
No deleting, no anything, just opening things up. And I just noticed, yeah, nothing's opening on the live share. Wasn't that nice? It didn't even open my folder for me. Apparently even I can't manage all the windows that we have open. Let's see if it would like to wait. How did it? Okay. Apparently VS Code just shit the bed when I started the live share. Where did my live share? I'm so confused. Okay, sorry. Scratch that live share link. I'm gonna have to restart it because I really don't know what happened. Try this again. Blog, VS Code, npm start. Live share, share read only. Paste that. Don't hijack that. Okay. Sorry, one more. Live share link, give that a try. I'm feeling better about that one working. If only I canceled class every time there was a technical difficulty. I did feel bad for Ryan though on that week where his internet just crapped out at his house. It's like, oh, I don't know what you want me to do to fix that. All right, blog project is open from week 9 day 3. Our React project called blog is also open We have right click open in integrated terminal, npm started that. We have our spinning React logo here. We've got our VS Code open with our React code here. And it is also having our day 3 open. Amberlynn mentioned that it's not asking for your name before putting in the link. That may be an update that they just pushed out. But if it lets you join in, otherwise that should be fine. Everyone good? Anyone need a minute? Anyone sobbing yet? Give us a couple more minutes and I'll get you into tears, don't worry. Okay. Where do we start? We start at the beginning. So we've got our home page and I want my home page to start to work, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, before we can even dive into that, there's this read more button here. And if I click on read more, it takes me to this read.html. And I'm like, okay, how have we done multiple pages in React before? In HTML, we just create that file, right? Read.html, read.html, it's created, we put an href to it, everything works fine. Kenny, we've used components. That's a good thought, right? And those components are in separate files, but we've never made it so that when we click on one of the links, it takes us to a separate component. We need some way to say, hey, when I click on this link, go to this route, and that route is going to route us to a particular component. We can't just go to that component without routing, because there are times that we will make a component that is not its own page. Think about the send message and the received message. Both of those are components. They show up on a page, but they aren't their own page. A user shouldn't be able to go to /sent message and be able to see that component on its own page on its own. So routing is a new component that our new concept, that we are going to learn tonight. A route, and we should add this to the terms list if it isn't there already. A route is just a way to take a URL from the browser and route you to the component that we would like to show up. Now, we know components can have other components in them. So what we can end up doing is building out a route that has a component that acts like a page. And in that page, we can call other components that show up. So we are going to start with that. We are going to head back to our blog project. In the SRC folder, we're going to do what we've done before. We're going to head to app.css. We're going to delete all of that stupid stuff out. We're going to head to app.js. We're going to delete the whole header out. And once that is done, we are going to head to public and go to our index.html. We are going to open a new tab and go to getbootstrap.com. We're going to go to the docs. We're going to go down to number 2. We're going to grab that whole link tag and copy it. We're going to come back over, make sure you are in your React version. You are not in the week 9, day 3 folder. We'll go down to the bottom of the head and we're going to go ahead and paste in that link tag. I'm going to close out of that and I am in my app.js. 3 steps, app.js, delete the entire header component, app.css, Command A, delete out everything that is inside that folder, go to public index.html, scroll down to the bottom of the head tag, copy and paste in the link tag from getbootstrap.com, and our project is almost done with setup. So, new concept we are going to use. We are going to go to Google and we are going to Google React Router. Believe it or not, React is a SPA, a single page app, SPA, Single page apps, well, think about it. If it's a single page, how can we make it so we can go to other pages? Well, Facebook is built in React. And if React is only for single page apps, I'm pretty sure React has multiple pages, or Facebook has multiple pages we can get to. The way that we get around single page apps, which all we've built so far, single page apps, right? Chat app. Well, we can't click on anything. We can't go anywhere. Everything's inside of that. Owen Wilson, it's making an API call. It's searching. Everything's showing up there. So in order to make the equivalent of multiple pages, we need a router that is going to take that URL and route us to the right component. That is what we use React Router for. The problem is React Router is not built in to React. Does anyone have a guess as to how we can take a different thing and install it into React? Corwin, it goes in public index.html down here right before the closing head tag. That's where Bootstrap goes. Anyone have guesses as to? Okay, so a couple good guesses. We do have to import it, but we can't just import things willy-nilly. We can import useState and useEffect because they're coming from React. Create React app obviously installed React for us. We could do an extension in VS Code, but we need that to be able to work once the code leaves VS Code and we deploy it to the internet. So we do need to import it, but we need to install it before we can import it. The way we install it is npm. We are installing a node package, npm node package manager. So if we look at this documentation changes every time I use React Router, because they always come out with new versions of this. Let me see. Let's check in the tutorial. In the tutorial, you will see that the first thing they do is npm install React Router DOM. We actually don't need all of this other sorter stuff. That's just for their tutorial. We're not actually going to go through the tutorial. So I'm going to copy this npm install React Router DOM. I will also put it in the chat so you don't need to follow along. Oh, thank you, Mel. In app.js, I can't just paste it down in my terminal and call it a day. Why? Because my terminal is running the web server. Because it's running localhost 3000, I can't run another command to get that to install. So I have to go to my terminal and hit Control-C, not Command, Control. Control-C is going to stop my server. So if I head back to my React app on my 3000 and refresh it, it is now dead. I can't run anything there. I'm going to go back to my terminal and paste in npm install React Router DOM with spaces between router and DOM.
This is in the blog.
Dashes. This is in blog. This is in React. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter on that. That's going to take a hot minute, and it's going to install React Router for me. Before I can leave the terminal, it installed, but my server is not running. So I need to run npm start again, and that will fire up my 3000.
Max, while we're all installing this, quick question. So you said React was used to build Facebook. Was React being used before it was defined? I thought they used like Lisp or something.
React actually was born out of Facebook. Facebook was using it internally, and then they were like, hey, this is really cool. Why don't we open source this? And so they did. However, Facebook goes back to 2008.
Yeah, like a long time ago.
React certainly did hasn't existed since the beginning of Facebook. So it's a good question. Facebook uses server-side a programming language called PHP. Obviously not a front-end language, but since its very beginning days, Facebook has used PHP. PHP is also the language that WordPress is built in. It's a server-side programming language. It actually stands for a personal homepage, or it did when it was created. Anyway, yes, at some point, Facebook decided to switch over to React for their front end. They still use a specific version of PHP for everything server side, but they probably in the mid 2010s, somewhere around 2015,
2011.
started to switch over to Facebook
Oh,
or to
specific.
React.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. All right. Did anyone run into problems? Does everyone have their after they installed React Router DOM, have their server back up and running? We should have a white page and not an error message in the browser. Okay, I'm gonna head back to our code. We can delete this import logo.svg. That should get rid of our warning, and we should be back to compiled successfully, or you have this big yellow block of text. That's okay. Now, how do we use React Router? Well, if I come down here and scroll down a little bit, we see that we have to create a router. The router is basically what is going to contain our routes that are going to take our paths, our URLs, and link us to an element. So I am going to come over to my React code, and let's see if I can get all of this to fit on the screen at the same time. Okay, so up at the top, before we can use anything, we have to import two things: a create browser router and our router provider. I will caution you, if you have been using cohort 4 or any previous resources, cohort 4 did not use version 6 of React Router, which is the latest. So if you're referencing code from this cohort, that is totally fine. If you are referencing it from previous cohorts, the router will not match. That is also important for if you are working with any other React projects, code that already exists on the internet. They may not have upgraded their router to the latest version. So the syntax of version 6 has changed since version 5, just to give you a heads up. Okay, now that we've got it imported, we can start to use it. So we are going to say our const router is going to get created from browser router, and it is going to have an array of routes. And then in our app, we are going to say, hey, we are going to use a router provider, and that provider is going to have a router that links to the router we just created. So this router links to this router. This router is a prop on the router provider that it needs to work. Okay. From here, we are going to head to our files. Please, 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 for the love of God, right-click on the SRC, go to New File, and type in home.js. It must be in the SRC folder. Come over you and slap you silly if you screen share and your home.js is not in SRC. You can collapse the folder, make sure home.js disappears if it is not. Plush.
The name of props like router equals router, like, is that the naming convention? Because that like really gets confusing sometimes.
You can call this, if you want, my routes, and pass in my routes here. If that makes it a little less confusing, you can do that.
Yes, please.
The only other thing over here, Amberlyn, is the from React Router DOM. Is anyone else having issues with the live share? Okay. in our home.js, which I will put down on the bottom part of the screen so I can try and contain as much as this code as possible. I am going to say, I'm going to make a new component. How do we make a component? It's just a function. It's going to return out a div. That div is going to have some h1 in it that says home. But I can't use this home in any other file unless I export it. Once I export it, I can import it up here. And now that I've got it imported, I can use it as one of my routes. So routes take two pieces of information. One, the path. Where do I want my home page to show up? And then empty slash. When I first load it, that's going to be my home page. And I also want an element to show up at that path. And that element is going to be my home component that I just imported from up here. If all of this is working, when I go back to my browser and look at my React app, I should see the word home showing up. Drag this down. If you've got the word home showing up, you are all caught up in your browser. If you do not have home showing up and you think you are caught up, raise your hand and I can help you like I'm going to with Jen. What's up?
Why does it always tell me this file is not displayed in text editor because it is directory?
Can you share a screen so I can see what that looks like?
All the way on the right.
Yeah, your screen share didn't start. The fuck?
Yeah, this does this to me like every single time I make a new file.
Hit reveal folder and see what happens. Oh, I know what you're doing.
What am I doing?
It's you. You're the problem. It's you.
No, I always am. Surprise.
You are using the new folder button up here instead of the new file button.
No, the new folder instead of new file. I was like, I right clicked the source and I did. Okay, so
delete, right click on that and delete it. And then right click on move to trash, right click on SRC and new file, not new folder.
Okay.
And if it's still a capital H because it's our custom component. And if it does it now, I am going to be so confused. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, was I unmuted when I said the fuck? Sorry, sometimes my internal thoughts slip out.
You amuse me, sir. I'm just calling it out. That's all.
Life is too short as a developer to not be amused while we're working. Otherwise, it's way too depressing.
Wait,
Let me go back to sharing my screen in case anyone needs to see the code. Home.js is chilling out here down on the bottom third. And then app.js is up at the top.
So is there a way of going through that again real quick, just to make sure? Because when I was copying the code, I kind of missed what you were saying about like the path and the element. I just want to make sure.
So we import two things, and Corwin, I'll come to you next. So a couple things that we're doing here. One, we're importing create browser router and router provider. At this point, you don't really need to worry about the different types of router. Browser router is what we will use 99% of the time. Router provider is just this component down here that we can put in our JSX. Both of them get imported from React Router DOM. Before we could use React Router DOM, we had to npm install it. The npm install, this is something that I didn't cover. What did it do? Not only did it put React Router DOM and all of its dependencies in this giant node modules folder, it also updated our package.json with a new dependency of React Router DOM. So we are not only installing it, we're saving it into our package.json, which is just telling the computer, hey, when you install this, we need you to also install React Router DOM. From app.js, because we installed it, we can import it. And then there are two parts to the router. One, is this router provider. This router provider is what's actually injecting the routes, all the elements, everything that we need into our HTML. But router provider needs to know how to work. So we link that to my routes via a prop called router. So in order to make the router, we call this function create browser router, which is coming from our import. We store that in my root so it can be used down here. And browser router is going to be an array of routes. Routes are confusing because they can be called routes or routes, but root is confusing because it can be ROOT, meaning the root folder all the way up at the top, or it can be route, which is like what we're trying to say here. So this is doubly confusing because this is a route at the root of the folder. So I will try and call them routes, not roots, but sometimes I slip on those. So a little confusion there, just a warning. Okay, so this is the path. This is basically saying what URL do you want to show? What do you want this component, this element to show up at? I want it to show up at the home page, so I just make it a slash. Then what component or element would I like to show up at that path, at that URL? I want the home component to show up. Well, where's the home component coming from? It's coming from my import, which is coming from my home file. Well, my home file is exporting it, so I can import it here. And what should show up at the home? This div with an H1 called home in it. Corwin, I'm going to give you a spelling test at the end of the evening.
Oh my God.
Do you need help, Jen?
No, it's just oh shit, I'm not on mute. It's it's very hard to jump from file to file to file and try to keep up with you. So it's like sometimes you put little snippets of code in one file and I'm like, where the fuck did he just put that? And then I have to go through and like try to find it, and then you're so much further ahead of me. So
I'm going to try and take breaks, and I'm also going to try and leave everything that I'm doing up on the screen. It's not always possible, but I'm going to try some. It may be better to look at what I'm screen sharing than use the live share, because I'm going to try and purposely be good about leaving it up on the screen.
okay. Thank you.
But I know it's a battle. I know it's a struggle. And unfortunately, after all of this time of teaching the cohorts, like even in person, there's not much that you can do about it. Amberlynn.
Did you put the React router DOM anywhere else other than these 2 pages?
No,
Okay.
other than installing it in the terminal.
Okay, making sure.
If you can see home in the browser and you've got everything loaded up here, you should be caught up. There's no way you would see the word home in the browser if you screwed something up with the router. Okay, how are we feeling? Panicked yet? Hopefully I haven't fried you yet, because we are still 24 minutes away from taking a break. We have not used multiple routes yet, but we know this is an array. So like one thing leads to the next, right? So we're feeling good about that. Let's head back to our home page. And now, ready for the mindfuckery? We are going to compare this to our index.html over in day 3. Before we forget, I'm going to go down to my style.css. I'm going to copy everything on this style.css from my week 9, day 3. I'm going to go back over to my React code. I'm going to go to my app.css, and I'm going to paste everything in there. So just taking style.css, copy it, going over to my app.css in my React project and pasting it. That's it. We are done with CSS for the evening. You can go ahead and close your app.css. You can go back to your day 3, go ahead and close style.css. The only file that I'm going to have open for now in the blog project is index.html. The only file that I have open in my React code is home.js. We're going to be working there for now. Home.js, index.html. Now I'm looking at this and I'm like, wait a second, I don't need Bootstrap. We already put Bootstrap in public index.html. I'm good there. Don't need that. I'm good to go. I'm going to come down here and I've got this container. And in the container, I've got this H1 that says Max's blog. I've got an ID. I've got action links, and that's everything. So I'm going to take my whole div class container and copy that. And then I'm going to head back over to my home.js. I'm going to delete out my H1 and paste in my container. And all hell breaks loose. Okay, how do we, this is the first time that we've taken some HTML, just dropped it into our React, and React is mad. Flash has the starting point for us. It is mad because of this comment. So if we just click on this comment line and hit Command/, and it's going to convert it to a React comment. Because of that, I can go ahead and hit save, and I think I'm in good shape. I get Max's blog showing up, but what's the thing if we're looking at this code that we know is different about React? In React, we can't just call it class. We need to call it class name. So how do we know that? Well, if I head over into my inspect and head to my console, it's going to tell me invalid DOM property class. Well, I could come over here and type in name and name, but that feels really old school. Instead, what I can do is hit Command F, and that's going to give me this little drop down. And I'm going to type in class in the first one. I'm actually going to type in class equals. Then I'm going to come down into my replace and type in class name equals. Make sure you get your capital N in there. And when I hit this second button over in the second row, it is going to replace all of my class equals with my class name equals. It's called a find and replace. It's not special to React. It is special to VS Code. All text editors have a find and a replace. I hit Command F, F for find, and then I need to hit this little toggle replace drop down to get my second row to show up. Make sure you have the equal on both of them. Make sure you have a capital N in class name. Then I'm going to hit this button right here to replace all. Save, come back over to the blog, refresh. Now I'm back to no error messages, none of that.
Hey, Max,
Yes.
how did you get it to replace it? Because I've got, I hit Command F and I've got the search bar up with class equals.
The little drop down on the left, the little toggle arrow will give you the second row.
Okay, thank you.
Class name equals in that text box, and then it's this button right here for replace all after you've got the class name equals in there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Max,
Good. Yep, go ahead, Rain.
just to recap, can you take the find off for
Mhm.
me?
Mhm.
Thank you. So anytime I input the component home, home contains this return, which is a div that has a container that will display Max's blog when I input the component home anywhere into my code, my main code.
And we are using the router right here to
Mhm.
link that path to the component of home. Yes.
I should have said that part, excuse me.
No, you're good. It's a good recap for everyone. Okay. Now we also have our posts. And if I go look at this, I'm like, all right, here are my posts. And I got these little cards and the read more button and all of that stuff. I go over to my code and I'm like, here's my posts and it's empty. Well, what did we do? When we first made this project, we made the posts show up in our HTML. But as we went, we realized that we needed some JavaScript to generate out those posts. So I'm going to head to my index.js and sweet mother of God, I have found a lot of HTML for each one of my posts. Here, I want to make all of this work, but I've got warning lights going off in my brain. I reuse this post over and over and over again. Because of that, whenever we have reusable code, what do I want to make a new one of in React? What concept do I want to use? A component. Not use state yet, Amberlynn. We will use state, but state's going to keep track of all of the posts on the data side. So if we want to think about it, use state is going to be the object, the array, the JSON stuff, kind of. And then on the front end side of what we're going to display, where that state data is going to come out is a component. So that's I'm glad you guessed wrong on that, because that's an important differentiation. We're going to use state to keep track of posts, but that data needs to display somewhere. That data is going to display in a component. So I'm going to take this entire div. I don't have the template literal selected. I just have that first backtick. I'm going to copy that. Components technically are functions, Jen, depending on how inception you want to get, how semantical you want to get. But yes, components are like functions in that we can reuse them over and over again in React. Okay, so I'm going to copy that template literal. I'm going to head back to my React code. I am going to right click on SRC, new file, not folder, Jen. I'm looking at you. New file. I'm going to call this post.js. In my post.js, I'm going to say const post equals a function that is going to return out my div that I'm just pasting in. And then at the end of that, I'm going to export my default post. Jen, the reason why they don't just call them functions is because you can't just use functions in React to show up some HTML. Functions are kind of special because components are kind of special because they have props and that you can reference them in your JSX to call the functional component. So components are technically just functions in JavaScript, but they've got additional functionality built on top of them. And that's why components are special, right? Functions don't have a life cycle. They can't use effect. They can't use hooks. They don't have state. They don't have props. Components they use functions, but they've got additional things built on top of them. But it's confusing because React is a JavaScript framework used to make HTML easier to write. And it also uses JSX, which is half HTML and half JavaScript. So like, if you slipped up in an interview, you were like, oh, I'm calling my function post here. It's like, Well, you're not wrong. Post is a function. It just is a special type of function called a component. Okay. Kenny's one step ahead of me. We've got red here. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out the end of my card. And everything is looking right here. But I've got class, and I'm going to be a fool if I go and try and change them out manually. So I'm going to hit Command F. Class was saved from me on my last find and replace. And if I come down here, I've got class name equals, and I got to be careful. I've got an equal here, but I don't have an equal up here. So I have to put in my equal there to make sure that I'm replacing every class equals with a class name equals. Now I can hit my replace all button and save it. Kenny, you've never Command F'd and replaced all of your periods in an essay with like a size 20 font period. It automatically adds like a page and a half to any long essay. Lifesaver in college. Okay, got that find and replace done. I come back over to my browser and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going to show a post. And I make sure I'm in my React tab, not in my first tab. And I got nothing. How can I make my post show up in my browser?
Import, export.
Import, export. I'm exporting it here. Where do I need to import it?
Home.
Home. You had a 1 in 2 chance and you got it right. We don't want it in app.js. Why do we not want it in app.js? We don't want our post to be its own page. Well, we will, but for right now, that's not where we're trying to get it to show up. Where are we trying to get it to show up? We're trying to get it to show up in our home. Why? Because this is what we're going for, right? We're trying to get this card to show up. So I'm going to go to my home. I'm going to import my post from my post file. I am then going to go into my post. And how do I call that function? I'm going to say post. So I drop that in. I come over here. I look at my React app, and sweet Jesus, I've got error messages. Lots of them, 5 of them. Okay. Post is not defined. Post is not defined. Post is not defined. Okay, Jesus, I get it. It's not defined. I come over here. Where am I using post? Well, I use post.title. I use post.author. I use post.timestamp. And I'm like, that's all information that's got to be coming from somewhere. Well, this is data that's going to come from the end user. Because of that, I need to keep track of that information in my home with state. Now, I used an autocomplete there. I started typing in use and it auto-completed state. When I hit enter, it dropped this import in for me. If you type out a use state manually, make sure that you've gone up to the top and make sure you've got a use state. Use state is undefined is going to be one of the most common error messages you get in React and the easiest to fix. It just means that you need to go to the top of the file and import your use state. In my home, I'm going to think about data type. Data type is always one of the first things that you should think about when you use state. I need to keep track of multiple posts. What variable type am I going to use to keep track of multiple posts? I am going to use an object to keep track of title and timestamp and content and all of that, but I need an array because I'm keeping track of multiple posts that are not indexed by a key. I want to say post 0, post 1, post 2. I don't want to say post and then use the title of the post or anything like that. Now, in my array of posts, I am going to use an object. And what things do I need? I need a title. I need some content. I need a timestamp. So I'm just going to pull from a new date. Might regret that later, but for now, we'll do it as a new date. I need, what else? Title, author. Anything else? Content, timestamp. I think I got all of it. Now, how am I going to take this and send it down into my post? How do we take information from the parent and send it to a child? Props. But before I can get to my props, I've got my posts. And I need to tell it, hey, every time you find a new post here, make a new post component. What am I going to use in my React to say loop over all of my posts and generate out a new post every time? My map. So I'm going to say posts.map. That is going to give me each post. I am then going to say for each post, return out a post that has the data in it from each post. Nope, sorry.
Max, I had to step away for a second. Am I supposed to be getting the error that says post is not defined?
Yes, we are fixing that right now.
Thank you.
I'm also regretting my life decisions. So I did change this timestamp from a timestamp to a date.now without these parentheses. Just calling that out because I'm modifying that. Plush.
Do we need to declare that keyword data like as a variable or something?
Yes, I was just giving everyone a second to catch up.
No problem. Thank you.
Now it's important to be able to trace this through. So I'm saying, okay. Ooh, I'm gonna use multiple colors here. Where is my posts coming from? My post is coming from my use state here. That means everything inside of posts is this giant array right here. Okay, what am I doing by mapping through it? Well, by mapping through it, I'm getting each post. Each post is just this object right here. I take each post and I send that into a prop called data. Where does this data show up? It shows up in the post. If that's the case, I need to go to my post file and tell it it's going to get data. And that data contains the title, the author, the timestamp, and the content. Because of that, I'm going to use my fancy Command F and tell it, hey, wherever you see post period, use data period instead. I find and replace all. I save the file. I come back over to my browser, and dear God, I've got content showing up. We're going to take a break there. I'm going to try and open both files here. It's not going to work, and it's going to fight me. Come on. Oh, just show up on the right. There we go. Move this off screen. So you can take a break if your homepage is showing the content that we've got in app.js. If it's got this $ in there, that's fine. We're going to fix that when we come back from break, but we should be seeing our first post, and we should have our post data. In our post.js, we are taking data as a prop, and then we find and replace any place that there is post.something, and we use data.something instead. Load it in state, make it an array, use this object, take that array from state, map over it, get access to each post, take each post, pass it in as a prop. That prop is called data. Data is a prop that we are going to get in the post. Then we are going to use all of this object that's coming through that data prop to show the content in our React. Shannon.
Mine is not showing that. Mine's just very angry. I've got compiled with problems on the browser.
Aren't we all compiled with problems?
Yes.
Go ahead. Share your screen. Okay, data is not defined. You were very close to following everything along. When we pass data via a prop in in home.js, which you have down here, you're passing each post into a prop called data. So to tell the post, hey, heads up, you're getting a prop called data, we have to throw data up there.
Okay. Okay. Oh, now it works. Yay.
Good work.
Thank you.
Yes, Kenny, you could have thrown the word prop up there, and then in your curly braces to pull that data out, you would just say props.data.title or props.data.content or whatever you wanted to. Jen, you're up next.
I'm just gonna share my screen because I'm getting the same thing, but I can't figure it out.
It only shared the desktop with my code on it.
Awesome.
Posts is not defined. You are missing an S on line 5 after the word post. Oh.
Here, I'll move this out of the way.
On line 50, Home.js doesn't even have a line 50. Line 20. No. Just refresh the page for me and cross your fingers.
No.
Refresh it one more time. Okay, so now we've got a problem. Slice of undefined on post. Okay. Content. Post. This needs curly braces.
Oh,
We're close. This is missing a return,
Mm,
and you're good to go.
thank you.
Blush.
Mine says title is not undefined.
Share screen. That title, that looks right. Take me to your home.js. Title, each post, posts map. Take me back to your post.
With the word title only shows up like here and here. And
Yeah, refresh your screen. All right. Got me confused. Let's take a look. Thank you. Posts, each posts, return it. Data, return, data title. On post, line 7. I'm missing something stupid. Ah, here. You've got a post here where you're sending in the data, and then you've got this post hanging out here outside of the map that's not getting any data. Now, if we refresh, you're good to go.
awesome, awesome. Thank you.
Corwin.
All right. I'm discombobulated. I'm gonna show.
Break be back at 7:30, by the way, for anyone who has it working. Okay, post is not defined. So let's go to your code.
So move this out of the way. Can you see my screen?
And come in here. Okay, so what we need to do is go to your post.js. And in here, I think you've got an old error message. Cannot resolve home. Here, your file name is called post, not posts.
It freaks out. So when I put the S in there, it like said it was okay, but I took the S out. It's like either way, it doesn't like, I don't know. There's something else in here that's wrong, but I can't figure out.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop it and restart it and see if it thinks about. Yeah, that's fine.
It's loading. I think.
Okay.
Okay,
so here,
this
is a better error. Export default imported as post is not found in .post. So if we go to post, we have everything here, but what are we missing? The export it can import.
Oh my God.
Now in your browser, do you see the post with all the content in it that's in state?
Oh no, it is. I'm gonna just let you look at this.
Oh no, how dare I assume it would work?
It's just looking low.
Refresh your. I think I know what the problem is. Head back to your code for me.
Oh, I lied.
No, you're good to go.
I lied. Thanks.
Good work. Amberlynn.
I think I missed something in the FJS part, but I haven't upped my errors, so that's good.
Okay. Share your screen. I listen to the musical Six all the time, and the way I just said your name, it sounded just like Anne Boleyn, and so I
Yeah.
just crossed two wires in my head. Anyway, you are missing the. Let me just request remote. It'll be quicker. You're very close. You just need the equal here and the equal arrow here. Okay, and now you've got a problem in your home.js. We are just missing the second half of this map. Now you've got a lovely white screen. It's very minimalist. Home. Post. Okay, I don't see anything wrong there. Let's excuse me, Mr. Code, please work. We got an extra semicolon here. This div needs to be up on the same line for JSX to not freak out. There you go.
Alrighty.
Good work.
Thank you.
No problem. Last call for questions. Okay. Be back from break at 7:30. Off. All right, we got a couple things to clean up here. And then we can dive into getting our read more button to work. Or actually kind of our new post button to work, come to think of it, but I'll get there in a second. Okay, so we have two things we need to clean up. One, these stupid dollar signs are showing up, and two, we've got this key error in the terminal that we want to fix. Okay, to fix the dollar signs, I'm going to head to my post.js. We've got all of these dollar signs left over from our template literals. But in React, we don't need the template literal, right? All of that data is in state. When we do those curly braces, React already knows, hey, just drop that content, whatever is in the curly braces, into our content. So we don't need these dollar signs anywhere. So we're going to use our favorite new tool of the evening, Command F. I'm going to head back to my find and replace. I'm going to type in my dollar sign here. And then down here, actually, I'll do a dollar sign curly brace just to play it safe. And then down here, I'm going to replace wherever there is a dollar sign curly brace with just a regular curly. I'm going to go ahead and find and replace all, go ahead and save that. And now when I head back over to my HTML, all the dollar sign curly braces are gone. I think all the dollar sign curly braces are gone, except for one lingering right here for whatever reason. So it's safe to go ahead and delete that one out. So I'm going to save, I'm going to come back over here, and now I've got my dollar sign curly braces gone. Find and replace all of my dollar sign curlies with a regular curly, replace all. There may be one lingering dollar sign you can delete out there, then you are good to go. That is in post.js. The other one that we need to take care of is down here. It says each child in a list should have a unique key prop. That is in home.js. Whenever we map over something, we always need to put a key on what is getting returned so React can keep track of it. So we're going to say key equals, and we're going to use the post timestamp as the key. So I go ahead and save that. I come back over here. I still have it in my console. It is lying to me. I have resolved that error. If I go ahead and, oops, excuse me, it should be post.timestamp. It should be each post.timestamp. My bad. In the return of the map, each post.timestamp, I save, I refresh, and my error message has gone away. So this key is what we added whenever we map. Kenny, in this situation, we don't need to use the index. That's a good question. Don't follow me on this, just showing you an example. Last time we used .map, we threw the index here, and then we used the index down here. However, we only use index as a last resort because if we delete one of the posts here, all of the indexes change, and that means React has to update all of those different posts because the index updated. Instead, ideally, we use a unique identifier that is part of the data. So in this situation, instead of pulling out the index from the map, we can use timestamp because it is unique and stored in the data. Down the road, we'll use an ID from the database that the database generates. But because we are working on data that isn't stored in the database, we can use timestamp instead. But yes, you got it. Different time for each post, which makes them unique. All right.
Max,
We should have. Yep.
I just have a really quick question. When you do the Control F, instead of putting the dollars, the curly bracket like we did with the $sign, could we have just put the $sign in and then deleted multiple ones? Is that possible?
You can, just be careful, because the reason why I do, like, when I do class equals and then I say class name equals, the reason why I put the equal on the end is, what if you had the string of like, okay, class, today we're going to learn. Well, now all of a sudden I'm going to get, okay, class name, today we are going to learn. So I like putting the equal in there just for additional syntax to make sure I'm not over finding and replacing stuff. But in this situation, yes, you could have just said $, replace it with nothing and hit replace all, and it still would have worked. I just like being a little bit more verbose in my find and replace, just to make sure I don't accidentally replace too much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Any questions on key or getting rid of the $signs in here? Okay. I think we do have to get our read more button working, but I think the next logical step here is being able to say, well, this is all kind of placeholder data, right? This is dummy data. I want the ability to click on the new post button here, go to a page that has my post in it, and then type in all of that stuff, hit the post button, and have it show up on the homepage. So we're going to do everyone's favorite thing. We're going to come over here. We're going to make a new file. Yes, yet another new file. And I'm going to call this new post.js. Again, make sure you are in the src folder, new post.js. I'm going to say my const new post is a function. The function is going to return a div. The div is going to export the default new post. You can all type that quickly, right? Trust me, the only reason I can type it that quickly is because, not because I've taught it for 4 previous cohorts, it is because I do it all the time. Making a new component just becomes muscle memory over time.
Max, I chimed in a little late and I tried to do some of the changes that I heard you say, but somehow my post is not showing up anymore.
Share screen. Can I see what it looks like in the browser? Oh yeah, it's just gone. Okay. Let's request. And let me take a quick look at your post. Oh, that looks right. Each post, each post, each post. All right, I don't see anything wrong. So let's go to your inspect. Oh, nope, nothing in there. Where did your post go? Ah, here it is.
Oh, okay.
And then on this one, we just found some of those $signs and got rid of them. So there's like one lingering right here. And you're good to go.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help? Okay, so we've got to get our new post to show up. Where do we want our new post to show up? I am going to just throw an H1 in here that says new post so that we can see what is inside that div. Where do I want my new post to show up? App.js. So I'm going to head to my app.js. And now I'm in here and I'm like, all right, I want a new path. And that path is going to be my new post. And what element do I want to show up when there is a new post? I would like my new post to show up. Notice that because I use the autocomplete on that component, it automatically added that import for me. If I did not use the autocomplete, I would manually have to import that new post in. Okay, so I got my new post, I've got my path new post, I've got my element new post. That means that if I go over to my browser and do /new post, I can see my new post show up. Whoa, routing, wow. Go ahead, Jen.
Show me how to do that, where it pops up and it just does the import up on top for you again.
Unfortunately, VS Code is very finicky about getting this to work, and we find this every cohort of it works for me, but it doesn't work for other people. If you type the arrow in and type in NEW, you can see that mine has like a little square, a little box in brackets. And if I hit enter on that, it drops it in for me, and then I can do the / and it works. That does not work consistently, however. So if it is not working for you, suck it up and type it in manually up here. Sorry, it's one of those things that I, to this day, do not know why it sometimes works. And you'll like go and create another route and it will work for you on that route. And you're going to be like, the fuck, man? One thing that you do have to do, make sure you've got your export default new post. If it is not exported, it will not let you auto-complete the import in app. But even if you have this export default, sometimes it decides to throw a fit and makes you do it manually.
Catch up.
Wait, so after we did us, did all that, what do you want us to do again in the browser?
In the browser, go up to the URL bar and manually type in new post. And if you manually type in new post, you should see the words new post showing up.
Does it matter if it's like capitalized or not? Or
Yes, the URL matters. Whatever the path is here has to match with whatever the path is right here.
okay, yeah, because cool. Thank you.
Yep. So we updated two things. One is new post.js. The other one is app.js. We added this entire object. Don't forget the comma on the line before it. And then we added in that new post syntax. Palash first, Corwin, raise your hand and I'll come to you next. What's up?
So this is a tangent, so let me know if you don't like me anymore. But if you if we want to like import the data data.title into the path string, how would we do that? And we can do it later if you want to.
Not easily. So the same reason that we ran into problems when we had message input and then we wanted that to add in the new message, well, we had to put it up at a parent level so that the state could be shared by both of them. So what we would end up having to do is in our home, we would have to take our posts here, move it back up to the app.js level, then pass that state into these props down here.
Okay.
So we're going to sidestep that just a tiny bit with local storage.
Okay.
But if we didn't want to use local storage and just use state, we would have to move the state up to the app level and then pass it down into those components.
Thank you.
Corwin, go ahead and share your screen. Okay, so our new post
Yeah,
has
I was I gotta put the
return
return.
something.
Yeah,
Yep.
I hadn't typed that in yet. I was gonna do that.
I don't know if this is going to fix your problem, but it's a good way to debug and make sure that we've got something in there.
Yeah, I had
And
deleted it
then-
to see if it would fix it.
In our app, new post, everything looks right. Check your browser, see if that fixes it.
It says new post at the top.
Cool. Good work.
Oh, it's supposed to say new post at the top?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
As long as you are getting new posts isn't defined, as long as that error is gone, then you should be all caught up. Anyone else need help? No problem. Okie doke, then let's keep going. So we've got our new post here and it's in the URL, but if I go back to my home page, I don't have a new post link. So I'm going to go back to my home.js. I'm going to go down to my action links and I'm going to say, well, normally I would do an ahref, but an ahref is kind of breaking some React rules. What ahref is doing, that anchor tag, is bypassing the React router, telling the browser to go to a new page, and then the entire React app has to go reload back in. We can take advantage of a single page application and make that render happen a little differently, a little quicker, but we can't use an a tag anymore. Instead, we need to use a link tag. And the link is going to go to my new post page. And that link is going to say new post. So notice I'm not using href, I'm using the prop2 instead. And then instead of the a element, I'm using the link. Well, I can't just use link. Link is a component that's coming from somewhere. It is coming from an import of link from my React router DOM. So I add my import up at the top. I come down here, I add my new post, I save, I come back over to my home page. I've got what looks to be a link. And when I click on new post, it takes me to my new post page. Okay, how's that flowing through? New post, we start at app. App, sitting at my home page, it shows the home element. We come back to my home page. We've got a link. The link is coming from React Router DOM. That link is getting used down here as a component. That component takes a prop of 2 with the value new post. When we click on that link, this new post lines up with this new post in here. The router automatically says we don't show the home anymore. We show the new post component. Where does the new post component come from? It comes from new post. New post is showing me this H1. Shannon asked a question. She said, why do we use a capital P here? Because I'm a camel casing Nazi. I camel case everything. If we use a lowercase p here or a dash and a p, that's totally fine. We just need to match that casing in our link right here. As long as those two match, we can use anything. But I camel case everything, and then designers yell at me and tell me that's not user friendly. You should use dashes instead. And we use dashes and everything all works the same. So as long as you're consistent, it doesn't really matter for URLs or paths. Okay. Questions? All right, let's get some practice moving stuff over. So I'm going to go to my day 3 folder, my good old fashioned vanilla HTML and CSS. I am going to close out of stuff that I don't need. I'm going to head to the new post.html page. I'm going to take everything that is inside this body, this div container. I do not need the script new post. I'm going to copy that whole big thing. And I head back over to my new post.js. And I'm going to paste that entire div in. Danny, I'll come to you in 1 second. I'm going to Command F. I am going to find any of my classes, class equals, and I'm going to replace them with a class name equals. Make sure you get your capital N there. I'm going to do my find and replace. I'm going to save everything. I'm going to head back over. And when I refresh, I have some errors here. That's okay. All that I want to show up, my title, my content, my author, my create post. If I get all of that showing up in my new post page, and I've got all of my class equals switched out with class name equals, I am good to go. Danny, what's up?
So I had to restart my live share because I closed it by accident and now it won't connect right. It just shows that I have the new post. So I don't know what I did wrong. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Go for it. Maybe this will fix Amberlane's problem as well. Because live share apparently is acting a little funky tonight.
All right, so this is my code and you can see what it says in my terminal. And then I can just unshare it or bring the other one over when you need to look at my
Your code looks fine. That set posts we haven't fixed yet, so we'll do that in a second. So what's the problem with the live share?
Oh crap, is it gonna, oh, it's gonna be stupid. So it's just showing that new post, nothing else is showing up. It just shows that.
Okay, go back to your code.
Mhm. Oh no, where'd my code go? Oh crap.
Swipe over with 3 fingers. Is it in another virtual
There we go.
desktop? Okay. So that is because new post in here is still empty. So this is kind of confusing. This post is the post that shows up. Oh, no, I lost your browser. This in post.js is the little card that shows up the post content on the home page. The new post page is supposed to be the form that shows up.
Okay.
So we took that form from our new post.html, but I'm going to just borrow it from mine. So if we copy and paste that over, now when you look in your browser, you should have the whole form.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Max.
Yep, no problem. Good differentiation for everyone. There's a difference. New post.js is what's showing us this whole form over here. However, post.js, everything that's used here is what's making this card show up here. So post.js is this one, and if we hit new post, then we get new post.js here. We good? Anyone have questions?
Is it okay to have a warning in the console?
It is okay to have a warning in the console. We will fix this, actually, the next thing we're doing. Anyone else need a minute? Should have our new post form here. We should have all of our classes changed out to class names. Okay, this is where we get into some funky of React. Now we can merge our interfaces together, right? This isn't just about the HTML. This is also about our JavaScript. So we want to do something on submit of this form. Another thing that's different in React is that it's going to be a capital S instead of a lowercase s. And then we don't need to go into our JavaScript file to run this JavaScript. Instead, what we're going to do is say const create post is going to get the event. And we are going to then take out these quotes and instead just pass create post in our HTML. Now, where does our create post code come from? I'm going to head back to my code here. I'm going to go to my new post.js, and great googly moogly, we've got a lot of code in here. I'm going to take this whole file, Command A it, Command C it. Then I'm going to come back over to here, highlight my create post and drop that whole sucker right into my JavaScript. Gonna save all of that. Now I'm gonna warn you here, we're down 2 days because we've got networking events that we did not have last cohort. So there are ways to reactize this code that we are not going to cover. The 2 ways that we could make this a little bit more React friendly, instead of pulling all of the values out of the event, we could set up our inputs down here to use state using value and on change. That's one way to make this code a little bit more React friendly. The other way we can make this code a little more React friendly is instead of saying window.location, we instead could use a hook that is coming from the router. That router can take us to another page a little bit more faster, a little faster than if we use window.location, a little bit more single page application friendly. But we don't have the time for that. We're going to forge forward here. What we did, we went to new post. We took the entirety of new post, all of the stuff that made the form submission work, and we pasted that in on top of right after the new post line. We added that whole function in. Then down here, we have our on submit. We changed this from quotes to be the curly braces, and we linked create post here up to our create post up here. We save, we go back over to our browser, I refresh, and now I've got one more error in the console. This is a minor one, but one we should fix. Down in these maybe not. Down, yeah, in these labels, we've got this thing called for, but for is a special name in JavaScript. What do we use for? We use for loops. So React is kind of freaking out, and it's like, for what? What do you want me to loop over? I want you to do it for anything. So we have to change out our fors for HTML4, and that will make our warning go away. So for each one of these labels, change the word for to HTML4. You can do a find and replace if you want, but there are only 3 of them, so I did it manually.
Max,
Yes.
could we put that in single quotes, being that titles and double quotes, or it doesn't work for us?
You can use single quotes or double quotes. Prettier will automatically change out all of your single quotes for double quotes. So you're saying right here, can we use single quotes?
No, on that for that you originally had before it became HTML4 camel case.
No, it does need to be changed. You can't just put in the quotes because React is specifically converting the HTML4 here so that the browser knows that if we click on the word title, it will highlight that form field for us. That's like an accessibility thing, so that if a screen reader is going through for someone visually impaired, they can say that this text box is actually labeled with title.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. What you're asking about is called escaping the characters. But unfortunately, that's not how we can escape it in React. We actually have to use the word HTML4, just like we have to use class name instead of class.
Yes, that's exactly what I was getting at. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So I come over here and I go, my new post, such awesome, great writer. And I hit create post. I'm like, it's gone. But is it really gone? I come down here and I type in my window.local storage. And if I hit enter on that, check out what's hiding in my posts. All of the stuff that I just typed in. Okay. So how do I get that? Well, wait a second. We've already got some of this stuff before, haven't we? So I'm going to go back over and I'm going to take a look at my index.js. My index.js, we took all of this HTML before. But what did I not take? All of this stuff up here. All I'm going to do is take these first 2 lines of my index.js. I'm going to copy those 2 lines. Then I'm headed back over to my home.js, and I would like us to get out the posts from local storage when the component first loads. What hook do I use in React to make this code run only when the component first loads? Use effect. So I come down here and I say use effect takes 2 parameters. The first parameter is a function that I would like to run. Oh, Jesus. There we go. And the second and much more important part of our use effect is a comma and an empty array. Without that empty array at the end, that use effect is going to run every single time we update the state. Well, guess what? We are updating the state in our use effect. So if you do not put this here, this is going to cause an infinite loop and cause your page to never load and throw an error message. So this comma and that empty array, really, really important. I think terrible syntax choice on React's part, but that isn't up to me to decide. We need that comma and that empty array down at the end to say only run this use effect when the component first loads. Okay, we paste in our code here. We get our post JSON from the window local storage. We parse all of that out. And are we ready for a mind blown experience? What do we do with our posts? How are we going to take our posts that are coming from the post JSON, which is coming from the local storage, and get it to show up down here in our post?
Set its state.
Oh, are you telling me I can just set my posts to the posts that came from JSON? I save, I come over here, and it says use effect is not defined. Oh, we'll go fuck off. I just need to come up here and use effect from my React. I save, I come over, and look, I've got some posts.
Is it okay? I only have like 1 post. I don't see like
Yeah,
much.
I have a bunch because I've done this for some previous cohorts. Let me actually clear that out so it looks like yours does. Okay, so yours should look like that. Corin.
It says compiled successfully, but it's not showing up in the browser.
Share screen. Oh, it is taking its sweet time. Come on, Zoom, you can do it. Try stopping it and restarting it. The fuck, Zoom?
Yeah, I'm getting a fat yellow bar. I don't know what that's all about. Hold
You have
on,
a
I'm gonna try it.
resume share button up at the top after you
No,
start the share.
no, I didn't see one.
It's like I can see you started it and then Zoom is like, nah, starting it's good enough and didn't actually show me the window. Oh, there it goes. Now it came through. Okay. Home, set pose, all of that's good. Can you show me what it looks like in your browser? Okay. So your problem is that you haven't created a post for it to map over yet. So if we instead hijack this and say, instead of going to the home page, go to the new post page, and we create a first post and hit create post. Now, because a post exists, it will show up on the home page.
I was like, dang, I'm always breaking something. All right, thank you.
All right, that's actually a good thing. I'm going to hijack yours. But before we do, does anyone else need help or another minute? Okay, so if your page is broken right now, if you are getting something that looks like this, it is because you have not created a post yet. And it's like, all right, well, not having posts shouldn't be breaking my homepage. I should see something on my homepage that says if there are no posts, show that no posts exist yet. We can do that. We can go down here into our posts.map. And we can say, if there are not posts, then show a p tag that say no posts yet. Otherwise, go through and map over my posts. So I save, I come back over here, I refresh, and now I get no posts yet. Now, if you did create a post and you want to test this, you can go down to your console and say window.local storage. Make sure you get a capital S in the storage. Clear with parentheses at the end. Then hit enter to clear out local storage and manually refresh your page. You should now see no posts yet. Then you can go to the new post page, ABC, DEF, 1, 2, 3, hit create post, and see your post show up. If you have this working, take 2 minutes right now. Go through the code, see if you have questions. Could you explain this code to someone else? If you cannot, tell me what section you cannot, and we will go back through it. I've written a lot of code tonight. We've got more we've got to do on this tomorrow, but it's more important that this sinks in than it is that we keep on adding new features. So take a couple minutes, take until 8:10. Take 2 minutes to review through this code, see if there's something that you cannot explain. And I will shut up for 2 minutes. Amberlynn, this is a ton to fit in my screen. So this entire create post came from day 3 in the new post.js. The entirety of new post.js comes right after the new post component. And then this is a direct copy and paste in from new post.js. And then down here, the only thing we changed was this on submit, we made it a capital S, and then we put in curly braces instead of quotes, and we linked it to the create post right up here.
Okay.
Flash
It's-
got the nail on the head there. It's window.localstorage.clear. And Shannon, we have not tackled the read more yet of the post. That's what we're going to tackle next.
Hey, Max.
Yes.
The window.localstorage.clear is not working for me.
Liar. Share screen. Did you refresh the page after you hit clear?
I think so. Nah.
You have a capital W instead of a lowercase w.
What is it?
Local storage S, capital S. Dot clear. With the parentheses opening and closing. Enter. Refresh. No posts
Okay.
yet.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, take commands in the Zoom chat with a grain of salt. Normally they are lowercase. Just it's stupid that it auto corrects it to a capital. Then it takes like 4 tries for me to get it to a lowercase. So just be careful on commands there.
Max,
Yes.
so I have a question, and I don't even know if this would make sense, but up in, in app.js, we have the home page and the new post, and you said that we don't want a post to have its own page, but doesn't it need its own page? Did any of that make sense?
Unfortunately it did. So we're going to end up with 3 posts. We're going to have the post that's kind of a post summary that shows on the home page. We're going to have new post, which is the form that you fill out to make the post. And then we're going to have like a post detail or a post full or a post something that when you hit the read more button, it shows a separate page with everything on it. We've made 2 of those 3 so far. We've made the post card, which shows up on the homepage. We've made the new post, and then we need the read more post that we haven't made yet.
Okay, thank you.
How are we feeling for understanding? Does anyone want a football diagram drawn on the screen or a talk through of stuff? Or are we feeling like we are seeing how all of the dots connect at this point? Or are we feeling like we want to get out of class early? Too bad. We're going to keep going.
Why you do that?
Because I've only got 1 more day to finish this project. We good? We have any more questions? Anything that we
question.
want to re-review? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I fixed something and it brought me to that page that you showed with the unexpected application error, and you pressed a button and it went away.
What we did is in our app.js, in our home.js, we modified this in here. So instead of it just being the post stop map, we said if there are not posts, show this p tag that says no posts yet.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we ready for the last thing we're going to try and tackle tonight? We're going to tie Oh my God. Maybe I am going to end class early. I can't even speak anymore. We are going to try to get the read more button working. So I'm going to go back to my post.js, and I've got this A tag down here. But what do we know about A tags? We don't want to use them. We want to use a link because we're linking to a React page. There is one exception to this. If we are linking to something outside of our application, if we are linking to an external website, we can't use the link tag. The link tag is only to internally link to something in the router. But if we are linking to something outside of the site, we still use an anchor tag. Because this is going to the read page, we are going to swap this out for a link. We have to change both the opening tag and the closing tag. Because we are using a component, we need to go up to the top and import our link. Oops. Our link from React router DOM. We are going to change our href to a 2. And we need to use a template literal here because it includes the timestamp. So what we're going to do, in order to use a template literal in React, we weirdly need to wrap it in a curly brace. And so we are going to say, instead of going to read HTML, I'm going to instead take it to read and just have the timestamp here. A becomes link. We change our closing A tag to a closing link. We make sure we import the link from React router DOM. Then we change the href to a 2. Then we change the syntax a little bit. You'll notice I'm not using get parameters anymore. We have unlocked a new skill. We can actually use route parameters to get the information we need out of the URL. I'm going to see how we do that in 1 second. And by 1 second, I mean tomorrow. But we have one more thing we got to set up here, and then we will call it a day. So change our A tag. We change the prop from href to 2. We import the link, and then we change what our URL is going to. Okay. So get all of that set up. I go back to my my React app. I click the read more button, and it says unexpected application error 404 not found. Well, of course it's not found. We have to go back to our files. We have to make a new SRC. I'm going to call this read.js. Make sure it's in the SRC folder. I'm going to say const read. It's going to return a div. It's an H1. It says post goes here. I'm going to export my default read. I'm going to throw this at the bottom of the screen so you can reference it. I'm going to go back to my app.js. I'm going to import my read from my ./read.js. I am then going to come down here and make a new path that says /read, and I'm going to do something funky in here. I'm going to say /:timestamp. We're going to learn about what this colon does tomorrow. This basically allows us to put a dynamic value in the path, in the URL, and still have the router know to go to this page. Don't worry, that's going to come up tomorrow. And finally, we're going to throw an element in here of our read. I save, I head back over to the browser, I refresh. And if I get post goes here, you are done for the evening GTFO. Again, we should only see this post goes here if we click on the read more button in the browser.
Is this supposed to just say no post here?
Yes, if it says post goes here, you are done for the evening and you can get out. Tomorrow, we will learn how to extract this number out from our URL, use that parameter to go back into local storage, find the right post, take that post, shove it in state, and once it's in state, it will display that post information in here. Not tomorrow, Monday. 2-day week next week of class, 2 days of networking. If you get your post goes here, you can click your read more button and have that show up here. That means that you have not only got your route set up right here, and you've got your read component routing properly, it also means that you have modified the link tag properly right in Post.js here to properly route to the right URL. Plush.
Oh, I have like a completely different question unrelated to this. So I'm
Okay.
not sure if we're done.
I'm going to give it 2 more minutes and then I will come back to you. Anyone need help?
Even though it's showing up, I do for some reason in the post.js, the link when we did the 2 and the red and the timestamp, for some reason, like everything inside my curly braces is like, you
want to share your screen? Oh, Amberlyn, I will. My read.js is mostly my read.js is just okay. Cool. You need to use backticks instead of double quotes on both sides. Okay, you should be good to go there. Jen.
How about a nice big error before we go to bed?
I love nice big errors. I live for
It
them.
doesn't even tell me what I'm doing wrong. Here, let me move this. There you go.
Head to your app.js for me.
Oh, I gotta open twice here.
Come on.
Oh, you done screwed the pooch.
What did I do?
Refresh.
Oh,
Fixed it.
whatever. Thank you.
I was like, I don't know what you did, but that error scares me. Anyone else need help? All right, you guys are good to go.
Wait,
Have
don't,
a awesome.
Max.
Yep.
Even though you're logging off, can you keep your live share up just for a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
And Rain, I'm also going to post it up. I'll post it up in GitHub right now. So you can also just access it in the GitHub link.
Okay, thank you.
Week 14, day 4. I'll post that link right now before I forget, because I'm heading out, and as soon as my computer goes to sleep, it will terminate the live share. So Rain, just grab that link from the chat, and all the code is up in there. Okay, Amberlyn, go ahead.
Okay, I think I have a couple syntax problems.
Okay, share screen.
Okay. Something with this here.
You're missing, let me request remote.
Yes. Your
All
live
you're
share
missing is what should show up here that says no posts yet. And
Okay.
now that that's in there, it should be happier about that. That closes that. That closes that. I think you just need maybe one more here. No, not here. Here. Okay, so that's progress. Your other problem is in your read. We just need to export the default read. And now in your post, we use a link tag instead of the A tag. So this becomes link. We don't need that. And we close out the link here. Nope, class name. No, that's right. Read more. Oh, this isn't self-closing. Okay. And then why did that? There you go.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? I haven't forgotten about you, Plush. Going once. Going twice. All right, tangent away.
All right, so let me share my screen.
Yep.
That's,
Do you want me to stop recording?
doesn't really matter.
Okay. I didn't know if you were gonna like share an API key or anything sensitive.
No, it's kind of like Google Analytics stuff, but
Okay.
yeah, I don't think so. It's gonna. Okay, so the thing is, I am supposed to download all, since Google Analytics is changing versions, I'm supposed to download all these Google Analytics reports into Excel files. So I'm using Google Sheets add-on for that. What it does is it only takes like 10 metrics. So only like up to column J to fill up
Okay.
the master sheet. So
Yep.
I am sort of importing goals in like in every different sheet, because every goal has like 2 columns each, and there's like 20 goals, so there's 40 columns in total. Now,
Okay.
you know, in the background. So finally, what I have tried to do is copy all the goals data from each of these tabs into the master tab here. I accomplished this using this app script, and I have I wrote it. So for example, like right now you see there's nothing on here. If I run it,